Hi everyone, my name is Jordan Simpson, and today I'm going to be talking about advocacy. Advocacy is an important part of social work practice, and an important part of my personal journey as a social worker and a person with a disability. Today, I hope to give some helpful tips for the adaptable procrastinators out there, such as myself. Today, I'm going to be walking you through the steps of advocacy, with an emphasis on planning, using Hoefer's Advocacy Practice for Social Justice, a fantastic book I recommend for all social workers and advocates. Advocacy planning in particular is an important part of creating change, but it can seem overwhelming and frustrating if you are not often one who relies on detailed planning and have a more relaxed leadership and work style that tends to focus more on the big picture rather than the nitty-gritty details. That being said, not having a plan to guide you at all can be detrimental to your efforts to create change. You can miss deadlines and important opportunities for partnership and change if you leave yourself unprepared. It is important to have some sense of structure for you to follow. Understanding the issue, or what I like to think of as figuring out the who, what, when, where, why, how, and what can we do. This is the stage where you are getting to know the problem and thinking of solutions. The first step to advocacy is understanding your issue. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, for the most part it is, but there are various approaches to the work that will stem from your understanding and definition of the issue, so you want to be clear. Much like evidence-based practice and research, advocacy is a process. So first you want to define the issue with whomever you are working with or for in mind. Then you want to clarify who is affected and how they are affected by the issue, followed by narrowing down what the main causes of the issue are. Next, you generate potential solutions to the issue, and finally, you review proposed solutions to determine their impact on social justice, or thinking about it kind of like your overall outcome, goal, or change that you wish to see. Planning, specifically using advocacy mapping. This is the stage that Hoefer discusses being where getting from here to there is defined, and where you figure out what do you want to achieve with your efforts. For myself and others like me, discussing issues we are passionate about may come easy, but planning can be more difficult. Having tools in your advocacy toolbox, such as an advocacy map, can be really helpful. Be adaptable with your planning and mapping. Find a method that works for you and stick to it as best as you can. Here is the template that Hoefer offers in his book. I personally find this grid system overwhelming. I don't like cramming everything into spreadsheets, and I feel that it gets in the way of working to narrow down the steps in a manageable format that works for me. So I use bullets and slides for each portion, which you'll see later. I am a big believer that your work will be done best when it works for you too. So experiment until you find your fit. I will be walking you through an advocacy map that I created for my undergraduate social policy and advocacy course. This map was used to advocate for recreational device access for limb-different individuals, an issue close to my heart as a limb-different individual myself. Please feel free to check out my work in more detail by following my link tree posted in the references portion of this presentation. There you will see my advocacy efforts in drafting for LD 1003, a bill that was created in response to my efforts that is being reviewed and studied by the Insurance Commission in Maine. Some general background of the issue for you all so you aren't entirely lost through this next portion of the presentation. Recreational devices such as running legs and heel height adjustable feet or swim feet are often denied by insurance coverage as they are seen as not medically necessary. ADA only enforces the accessibility of public spaces. That alone does not ensure that everyone can participate in recreation and enjoy public spaces. Medical device access is crucial to meeting recreational and everyday needs. Medical necessity for prosthetics is based off of activities of daily living, which include bathing, dressing, toileting, and eating, for example, among other basic tasks of life. Full participation in life is far more than ADLs prescribe, and recreation has immense benefit for individuals and communities, in addition to being a cost-saving preventative measure in all areas of health and well-being. Recreation for disabled people is a right, not a write-off, for insurance companies to ignore. This is a quote from a professor and a physical therapist that I interviewed for my work, and it says it all perfectly here. Recreation is a right, and it should be your choice to engage or not engage in certain activities, but the way the current system is formatted, the choice is essentially being made for you. Christopher Delanick, OT. The first step in your advocacy mapping is outlining your resources and targets. These are the people you can lean on and or lean into when you are conducting your advocacy. These are stakeholders, people who have something to gain or lose and or are involved in the issue you are working to address. In my case, this was the Amputee Coalition, a national nonprofit agency that worked to support those with limb loss. My professors assisting me with this work, either directly or indirectly, by providing expert testimony or support for my project. Prosthetic companies and associations who would be impacted in the way they provide services if changes were to be made, and have potential additional access to data and research to improve quality of life for their patients. Prosthetists are direct providers of care. They would also be impacted by this in addition to those affected or the disability community directly. Advocates would also be a resource to my efforts, and my efforts in turn could affect what they are currently working on. Lastly, legislators and representatives are important targets to keep in mind as they have influence and authority to create change. It's important to remember and make note of, if it's helpful for you, to write down the specifics, all the angles of the issues, both positive and negative, when you're making your map, as this will inform your advocacy approach. As this is an issue I'm extremely well versed in, I wanted to keep my map as clear as possible and leave the intricacies out of it, as it would have congested my advocacy picture in my head. Personally, I'm a visual person, so I rely a lot more on simple notes and pictures, almost like a vision board, and small notes with important dates on a calendar. Again, experiment and find what works for you. Tasks. This is a short or long list of things that you need to do to keep your advocacy on track. I like to keep mine short, sweet, simple, and adaptable. I narrowed it down to planning for each opportunity or task involved in my goals, such as reaching out to representatives, for example, pursuing said action or task, experiencing it, and reflecting upon it. These steps were cyclical, and I was constantly cycling through them, and not necessarily all in the same order. It was helpful to keep myself motivated to have this as my task format as well, rather than looking at a to-do list with like a ton of things to do all at once. I stepped it out and took things one step at a time. Here is where I listed my goals. With high hopes, I put don't procrastinate. Now I've learned, thanks to Adam Grant and the TED Radio Hour podcast, that procrastinating has power. And it's okay to lean into that if that's part of your creative process, to take time away from something and think it out and reevaluate things. Just don't take too long. Educating myself and others was another goal of mine. Not many people, especially people outside of my circle or the disability community circle, knew about this issue, including those with the authority to change it. Advocating for the issue was important, but that couldn't have been accomplished without educating those I needed to work with and rely on. Do the big scary stuff and learn, reflect, evaluate, and grow. Everyone needs motivation in their planning and their goals, especially when it comes to advocacy work, where the fight can be long and slow. Keeping a realistic and positive perspective is essential to the longevity of your work and efforts. Finally, the ultimate social justice outcomes. I used to jokingly say, I just want people to have feet, man, but it was more than that. Arms too. Just kidding. Having a positive mindset helps me cope. In all seriousness, it was as simple as this. I wanted everyone to be able to participate in recreation with ease and joy in a safe manner without having to worry about their differences or the financial burden being in their way. Short, sweet, and simple, powerful. It's what keeps me going. Then it's time for action. Do the things in your plan to achieve change. Challenge yourself, learn, and grow from the experience no matter what the outcome. This is also where those persuasion, education, and negotiation skills will come in for advocacy, as well as various methods of conducting advocacy can be considered, such as electronic advocacy and more. Finally, reflect and evaluate on your efforts. For me, this was an incredible ride. I didn't believe as a junior when I first wrote my policy brief on this issue that it would have actually become a real possibility before I graduated. Testifying was terrifying at first, but it got easier, and it was pretty much as effective as I hoped it would be. They were moved by my personal anecdotes, which was a goal, but they also remained firm in focusing on children as I talked about my childhood experiences a lot. And that's something I hope to continue to push against in my continued work, because this can and should benefit individuals of all ages. It was intense how quickly things moved along through the legislative session, which was surprising. So I was really grateful for my planning and support systems with these fast-paced changes, especially during school and internship, which was with something entirely different. And I can't wait to see the results of the study and what the future holds for this work and the Limb Different community in Maine. Thank you. I hope this presentation was helpful for you, and please feel free to contact me with questions and feedback about this presentation, my work, anything and everything, and have a wonderful rest of your day.